chapter 19. Let's get this started, okay? So here's what we're going to be talking about in chapter 19. We're going to be talking about legal descriptions of real estate and deeds. I usually say that you cover this chapter after I go a little out of order. If you take my recommendations or I've told you what they are, I usually say that this goes after chapter 7 because 7 gives you an idea as to how you take title to property. And this is going to talk to you a little bit about deeds and legal descriptions of land. And I'll tell you what a deed is later on in the chapter so that you'll understand why the logic should be that this should go after title. Because in this chapter, you'll be able to discuss the 3 methods of describing property. So there's 3 legal descriptions that we use to identify and describe real estate, okay? And we're also going to be able to identify what a deed is and what the different types of deeds are that are used in New Jersey, okay? So first, let's talk a little bit about a deed, what it is, okay? Why it's important, okay? A lot of people mistakenly think that a deed is what is proof of ownership. Title is actually proof of ownership, okay? So title to a property and how you take title, okay, we discussed in chapter 7, okay? So deed is what conveys title of real property from one person to another or one group of individuals to another group of individuals, okay? And one thing that actually is required for a deed to be valid is a legal description of the land or real estate being conveyed, okay? So that's why we're going to be talking about legal descriptions of land, the 3 types that we have, which are first, our meets and bounds description. Second, our rectangular survey system, also known as the government survey system. And third, the recorded plat of subdivision, okay? So first, let's talk about our legal descriptions of land. The first one that we're going to talk about is called the meets and bounds description. Now, the meets and bounds description is commonly used. It's commonly used in conjunction with another type of description of land. But meets and bounds is basically a verbal description of the property, okay? So what they do, now follow this, they go from a point of beginning. So anywhere on the property, they designate as the point of beginning, also abbreviated as the POB. So if you ever see POB in a question or in a reference material, that is also referencing the point of beginning. And that is used only in the meets and bounds description. Then from the POB or point of beginning, what we do is we move around the property, describing it, moving clockwise, and we reference distance and where we are as far as our compass directions, north, south, north, west, east, all that kinds of things. And then we end at the point of beginning. Now, monuments are used to establish real estate boundaries. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about monuments and what we use right now. So monuments, now the meets and bounds description is a very old way to describe land and to describe real estate. So back in the day, the meets and bounds descriptions would use landmarks and monuments such as the old oak tree. Problem is, 100 years later, 200 years later, the old oak tree may or may not still be there. So now what we use is we use monuments that are man-made, and they're called rebar. So we use man-made monuments called rebar. And actually, if you walk around your property or go to the curb, you might see they're usually little metal posts that have a stamp in them, in the sidewalk, the cement, something like that. And those are used by surveyors to mark where you are in relationship to the property when using a meets and bounds description. So that is your meets and bounds. It's going to be basically a description of the property that starts at a point of beginning, moves clockwise around the property using distance, measurements, and directionals, and then ends at the point of beginning. The next one that we're going to talk about is the rectangular survey system. The rectangular survey system. Now, the rectangular survey system looks like a rectangular section. So what happens is it breaks it down into townships and sections. Okay. And each township is 36 square miles. Now, this type of description for real estate, not used in New Jersey, not used in any of the 13 original colonies. So this is something that is not going to be something you're ever going to see. This was established in about 1765, I want to say, and it started when we started moving west, our westward expansion. Okay, used the rectangular survey system. It was a slightly easier way to describe land as we expanded out west. And again, it was a very good system, just not used in any of the 13 colonies, including New Jersey. The next way that we describe land is our recorded plot of subdivision. Now, this is a common way that we describe land, especially in New Jersey. The land is basically on a plot map or of survey, which is actually in the township or the town hall, and they divide the land into blocks and lots. Okay, so you'll see a block and lot number. Every single property in the state of New Jersey is going to have a block and lot number. The deed will also more than likely have a meets and bounds description as well if there was a survey done. But the plat map of survey, it indicates streets, crossroads, all different kinds of things. And what happens is the blocks and lots could be irregular sizes. So what happens is there doesn't have to be consistency in regards to that kind of subdivision. Now, there's also a subdivision plot for condominium descriptions where there's each unit references the elevation of the floors, ceilings above the city datum. That's not something I would really seriously concern yourself with. What you want to basically know is that recorded plot of subdivision is used in New Jersey. It's where you have a plat map of survey in the town hall, town records, and it divides basically every property into blocks and lots. Now, survey, let's just talk about this really quickly. Only a licensed surveyor can prepare a survey, just like when we're talking about appraisals. Only a licensed appraiser could prepare appraisals. And surveys are used when there's usually a mortgage involved. So you're probably more than likely going to have a survey done at some point. They're good to have also just so that you know your marker, the property markers of your home that you're buying, of the land that you're buying, okay? Because that prevents any kind of physical encumbrances or encroachments on the property in an unnecessary manner. So let's talk a little bit now about deeds. So we basically identified our legal descriptions of land, right? Now let's get into deeds and who is involved in a deed. What are the things that we must have in a deed? Okay. Now a deed must be a written instrument. Okay. The owner of real estate intentionally conveys his or her rights, title, or interest in a parcel of real estate. There's two parties to a deed. Okay. Grantor gives the land. Grantee, new owner, acquires the title. Okay, so there's a grantor and a grantee. What I always say, if you haven't heard it in any of my other videos, OR in any manner, shape, or form is the person who gives. OR gives, EE receives. Two E's in receive. There is two E's in grantee. Grantee receives, OR gives. Grantor gives, grantee receives. So if we had mortgagee, mortgagor gives the mortgage, mortgagee receives the mortgage, okay? So let's talk about the requirements for a valid conveyance, okay? Requirements for a valid conveyance, okay? The grantor must be legal capacity to execute, sign. They also must be alive because they got to sign this, okay? So there must be a signature on here of the grantor. Do we need a signature of the grantee? No, we don't need that, okay? We don't need that, and I'll get into explaining that a little bit. We need the signature of the grantor. The grantee does not need to be signed, but they need to be named, okay? with reasonable certainty. So there's even a little gray area there for that. There needs to be consideration. There needs to be what's called a granting clause, okay, which outlines the consideration. Habendum clause. Habendum clause basically says to have and to hold. And it also then allows you to outline what type of title you take. So again, we're talking about chapter 7, right? Chapter 7 gives you the information as to how you're going to take title. Now we have the habendum clause, which is going to give you the opportunity to outline how you intend to take title, how the title is going to be taken once it transfers over to the new grantee, okay? So that's what the habendum clause is. There needs to be a legal description of the real estate, one or multiple ways in the that we've outlined out of the 3, okay? There needs to be, here's the thing, they say the signature of the grantor. No, there does not need to be a signature of the grantor, okay? You do not need that. Okay, you do need delivery and acceptance. Okay, and sometimes that does take the form of signature of the grantor. Okay, now there has to be some sort of acknowledgement. And here's the thing: this provides that there is, again, it says signature of the grantor. You do not need to sign that. The grantee is the one. Excuse me. I'm going to scratch everything I said. I was assuming this said grantee for whatever reason. Yes, you do need the signature of the grantor. I've been saying that this whole time. I'm not going to re-record this video for that little slip. You do need the signature of the grantor. You do need that because I was saying that before. The grantor, the one who gives the grantee, you do not need a signature for because delivering acceptance, once there's acceptance, it's assumed that you don't need to sign it. Just like when you take your own receipt at a restaurant, okay? Like if you go to a restaurant, you pay with a credit card, you know how they don't have a signature slip usually on the signature line on the customer copy? Same thing with a deed. The signature of the grantor is needed, but your signature on your own copy of it, it's not needed, okay? And there has to be acknowledgement that this signature is genuine, okay? There has to be delivery and acceptance. So I'm going to kind of sit on this page for a little bit so that I could kind of summarize verbally the things you need. You ready? You need a legal description of the property. Got to have it for a deed. You must have consideration, okay? Has to be during the lifetime of the grantor. The grantor has to be able to sign, has to be acknowledged, okay, before a notary that this is genuine, okay? There needs to be delivery and acceptance. So let me tell you something that they like to do. They love these stories, and I know the practicality of these stories are not there, not valid, but let me explain the story, okay? Number 1, they'll say, Bob, okay, so picture this, Bob has a home. He signs a deed conveying his farm to his grandson, John. Bob signs a deed conveying his farm to John. Tells no one and puts it under his bed. Bob forgets that he signed this deed, okay? He then puts the home on the market and sells the property to Banker Bill. Banker Bill now bought the property for sale. John is cleaning out his grandfather's home, okay? Grandfather has passed away, or let's say that. Let's kill him in the middle of this whole thing, okay? Grandfather passes away, and now John has found and discovered this deed, okay? Who owns the property? It's pretty simple. Bill owns the property. If you, as a grantor, sign a deed, okay? You sign a deed conveying the property to someone, but there is no delivery and acceptance, deed's not valid. This is the requirements for a valid conveyance, delivery and acceptance. If there is no acceptance on the grantee's part, then ultimately the deed is not valid, okay? It is not valid if there are if there isn't delivery and acceptance, okay? If there's not delivery and acceptance, and delivery and acceptance has to take place during the lifetime of the grantor, okay? You cannot sign a deed and then pass away, because then testate law will take place. As far as descent is concerned, descent law will take place. Excuse me. So either you die testate, which is with a will, or intestate. And when you will real property to someone, that is called devise. DEV is in Victor, ISE. Devise. So let's talk about the common types of deed, okay? So there are 4 common types of deed. There's a full covenant and warranty deed. There's the bargain and sale with covenants against grantors act. There's a bargain and sale deed and a quitclaim deed, okay? So full covenant and warranty deed, okay? So now this could be called a whole boatload of things. So this could be called a warranty deed, a full warranty deed, full covenants deed. This provides. Now, here's the thing. You could read the covenants all in your book. The covenant against season, the covenant against cumbrance, the covenant of quiet enjoyment, the covenant of further assurance, of warranty forever. Basically, I'm going to summarize all this fancy stuff. What this does is this provides the grantee with the greatest amount of protection from the grantor. So the grantor is basically saying, I am warranting my interest in the property back to the beginning of time, all the way to forever, okay, against any claims that someone might bring forth in regards to your ownership and your validity of title to the property, okay? So that's why it says the covenant and warranty forever is basically from now until infinity, and then the covenant of against encumbrances, quiet enjoyment, and further assurance is basically going back to the beginning of time, right? Okay, so that's why this deed is not super common, because again, an attorney probably would never sign off on something like this, but again, it's not super common. This is not the deed that you're going to see someone get in the state of New Jersey or in most states, because again, it provides the greatest protection for the grantee, yes, but it doesn't give the grantor. The grantor is basically guaranteeing it way too much on this one, okay? So this is like the unicorn warranty deed that I always refer to. The next one, okay, is bargain and sale. Bargain and sale. Now, this usually has to do with a bargain and sale. Okay, so this is when you're purchasing a home, okay? And now, bargain and sale deed, the grantors are willing to warn about the time that they own the property. So when it's a bargain and sale deed with covenants against the grantors, it's basically saying, hey, the time I own the property, here are the encumbrances that I put on it. And we know, going back to some of our chapters, an encumbrance is a financial claim or a physical encumbrance of some sort against the property, okay? So it's basically saying I haven't encumbered the property other than what I've stated that I have done, okay? And it doesn't say anything about any previous owners prior to me, but it's also saying that I do have clear title to the property. Okay, so you are saying that you have ownership to it. Okay, now straight bargain and sale without covenants against the grantors offers no express warranties, none. Okay, so basically what happens is with bargain and sale, it's offering you no express warranties other than that you have clear the Grantors Act. It's also referred to as bargain and sale CBG. So they might abbreviate it that way. Okay. So, and it seems like they didn't put in this slide anything about a quitclaim deed. Damn. Got to talk about a quitclaim deed. Okay. So quitclaim deed, all right? Yeah, there's nothing they put in here about quitclaim deed, okay? So quitclaim deed, we have to talk about that for a little bit. A quitclaim deed, okay, is something that is typically used in divorce settlements. It's usually used to clear title. Here's what it says. If I have any interest in this property, I am going to transfer it to you at this time, okay? So a quitclaim deed is basically a paper transaction. So I could give you a quitclaim deed to Kanye West's house. So what do you have? Do you own Kanye West's house? No. But if Stu Jacobson did at the time that I signed that deed, if I did have some sort of claim or interest in Kanye West's house, you now have that as of this time, okay? So it's really a paper transaction to clear clouds in title is the quitclaim deed. Other than that, I think we're good. That's chapter 19. As always, if you have questions, let me know.